Well, howdy, and thanks for watching episode number 3 of the Surviving the Airsoft Business video blog. Today, we're going to talk about our in-store podcast, which is Gorilla Airsoft Radio. Unfortunately, the podcast is probably more famous than the store is. Why do you do a podcast? Well, it's just something I've always kind of wanted to do. Always been a big fan of talk radio growing up, and in the early days back, I think they used to just call them internet radio shows back in the old days, so you always used to listen to those. Found some on paintball early on. Years went by, got into airsoft, and started to see a few airsoft podcasts out there. At the time, the biggest one that I was aware of was OPSEC Airsoft Radio. I was a big fan, listened to them, had a good time. I honestly still to this day say that our show is very loosely based on the concept that OPSEC Airsoft Radio started. And I had been talking about doing a show, and I didn't think I could do it. I'm a very shy person. That's the reason why we drink so much on the show, so we can continue to talk and, let our mouths blabber on. I didn't understand how I would be able to sit behind a microphone and talk for several hours at a time. Having a guest or having a guest host helps actually, and having a few beers definitely helps as well. So I was literally like, man, if we can just do like a 10-minute podcast or something, and throw some music in the front, music in the end, and we just. When I started doing it, I was shocked how easy it was to just ramble on and on and on. And if you've listened to the show, you probably understand, yeah, we just ramble on and on and on. So it was late 2000s, 2008, 2009, and I kept telling people I wanted to do this podcast. I looked at the possibility of doing it, looked at some of the equipment. I had a lot of recording equipment because I played music before. And so I thought that's a good foundation. I've got microphones, I've got mixing boards, I've got some digital recorders, and then Airsoftology came out, and I was like, oh man, they beat me to it. I mean, there was already in addition to OPSEC, there was Airsoft Radio and a couple other podcasts out there. So it's not like they're the first one. But then Airsoftology came out and like, okay. Now it's time to really, really get it done. There's some competition out there. I got to get going. So they were around for, I don't know, 6 months or a year before I finally decided to go ahead and do it. And so I don't remember the exact date that we recorded the first show. We did some prototype shows that were never released. But the first show was released on January 13th, 2010. That's over 8 years ago. During that time, we've put out, I believe, 188 episodes. We've gone on hiatus for a while. There's been times when we didn't do a show for 6 or 8 months. We took time off, or a month here, a couple of months there. Basically quit the show, fired all the co-hosts, and then at some point I decided it's time to get back and let's start doing this again. The fans were craving something, so we decided to get started and get back into it again. But I remember really wanting to I know I recorded that show probably right after New Year's. It was released on January 13th. Probably took me a couple of weeks to learn how to edit and everything, even though the editing is very minimal. We just literally, as far as editing, we edit in the intro and the intro music and the outro music, and that's it. We don't really do any content editing, although I have, over the years, done a little here and there. Somebody maybe on the show said something I thought was maybe, as much as we are sort of PG-13 rated, I don't want to be known as a NC-17 rating. So occasionally I've had to edit out a few things here for content, but very little. I don't mind that we're edgy, but I'm shocked when people come into the store, and I mean kids come in with their parents and the kids say, yeah, I heard you guys on the show this week, and I look at the mom and I go, that show's really not for kids. And I guess that's where we are nowadays. That's okay. So I want to make sure that we stay and continue to be edgy, but try to keep it more PG-13, less RNC17. But going back to the first show, I wanted to make sure that we got it recorded and out before SHOT Show that year, because I wanted to go to SHOT Show and be able to tell somebody, hey, I'm Jerry with Gorilla Airsoft Radio. Yes, we actually have a podcast about airsoft. It is out, and will you interview? Can you give me an interview? So I thought I would be a little bit more legitimate media if I could actually say I had a show, or you could go to iTunes and there is a show right there. Go check it out. So, anyways, that's how we got started. As far as what I thought it would do for the business, never really knew for sure. Never really used it to promote the business too much, and that's probably a mistake of mine. As far as making money on the podcast, I've sold a few patches here and there. When the store got broken into a few years ago, a lot of podcast listeners responded to the GoFundMe, so that was very helpful. But in general, it costs more money to do the show than it's worth. It doesn't cost a lot. It's pretty inexpensive. It's just our time and effort to do it, with new equipment every so often. So we started in January 2010. The original co-host was Gary Mashburn. Live on the very first episode, I called him G-Man for the first time. Just came out of nowhere, and that became kind of his call sign and his nickname on the show. We did the show. We talked a but he did a lot of the news. I did some stories, I think the very first episode was about, stuff for beginning players. It was a long time ago, man. It was 8 years ago. I don't remember what it was about. I think he did the show for 8 or 10 episodes, and then some other teammates jumped in, decided they wanted to do the show, and they were involved in it for a while. And then I got to the point where I was doing the show on a regular basis, to where I wouldn't even call or text or email anybody to say when the show was going to be, when we're going to record the show. They would just show up on that night, and that every 2 weeks on Thursday, that was podcast night, or whatever night we recorded it back then. So one night, nobody showed up, and I'm like, I'm going to do the podcast by myself for the first time. This is the first time ever. And those of you who have listened to the show know Mr. Stout, Gene, who my former business partner with Gorilla Paintball. He still fixes paintball guns for me today. Was in the shop, and I'd kind of pushed him into trying a little airsoft. He never really got into it. He was still Mr. Paintball all the way. But played a few games, learned a little bit about the guns, learned a little bit about the business and the history. And one day he said, well, you want me to sit in? He was here working on guns. He said, I don't want you to record the show by yourself. Let me sit in with you. And that's how he started on the show. And then he was on show for a while. Then we had Raj on the show for a while, and Joker. And Raj and Joker, I think part of the reason why we went on hiatus for a while is Raj and Joker almost got into a physical altercation after the show. And at that point, I'm just like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't worth it. And so we went on hiatus for a long time. I was like 6 months or 8 months or something, and then we kind of started up again. And it was just myself, Willie every so often. Arnold popped his head in from time to time. He was kind of new on the scene. And then we had, of course, Buck Wild. He actually came in, I want to say, like an episode number 10-ish or so, and he was on and off over the years, all the way until just maybe about a year and a half ago, and finally kind of bailed out. And then around episode number 70, 80-ish, the crew that I have right now kind of stepped in, and it was just a matter of like, hey, these are my teammates, why don't you come in and do an episode of the show? And then they came back the next week, and the next week, and then all of a sudden they're just like become regulars, right? So I'm sure it didn't happen exactly like that. They'll probably tell you something else, but that's kind of the history of the show host. We started live streaming it back, I want to say about 4 or 5 years ago on Ustream, and that was kind of interesting. I don't even know if Ustream is around anymore. We tried streaming it live on YouTube, and it was kind of clunky, didn't really work so well. And then so now we live stream everything on Facebook, and we use a phone. Started out using Jesse's phone, now we use my phone. And as we said in the very second, well, I guess last vlog, that's why this is backwards, because it's done with a front-facing camera, so all the lettering is backwards. So now we live stream it. We have listeners from all over the world, downloaders from all over the world. People are very active. We have 2 different chats. We have the Facebook chat that happens while the show is going on, and then we also have a Facebook chat that goes on in between shows, which isn't always airsoft related. It's just like dude bro conversation with a little bit of everything involved there. So you may or may not want to be interested in that. If you're friends with Jesse or Joe on Facebook, they'll get you set up with that. I don't even know how to get at it in there. I don't know, that's not my thing. Guests over the years, we've had most of all the major event promoters on, from John Liu, Josh Warren, we've had Bubba, we've had Bo from American Milsim, obviously Ross Courtgardner from Titan Milsim. Never had the guys from Black Sheep, Third Coast. There's some other organizations that, and I'm sure there's a lot of other ones I'm missing, but we're the West Coast guys, so all we hear about are the biggest ones. And so I guess that's it. We've had a lot of call-in guests over the years, but we're primarily just do a topic and talk about it. Call-in guests scare the hell out of me because I'm always afraid there's going to be some kind of technical problem that screws it up, and then the show gets just blasted. We actually tried to record an interview with Rich Lort from Wolverine Airsoft, and we couldn't figure it out technically. We could not figure out how to record the conversation, and so he's never been on the show. And it wasn't going to be a live call-in. We were going to actually record an interview during the afternoon or something, and we had it scheduled with him, and it didn't work out. So, and then every year we do our interviews, the people we meet at SHOT Show, a lot of people like that, and then every year we talk about some of the big events we go to, but that's about it. Yeah, we joke about how few people actually are involved in the live stream, which is, I think the most we ever had is like 20 or 30. Most of the time it averages between like 5 and 15. It's not very much. Downloads, we get a lot more, but still nothing impressive. I mean, we're like, between 500 and 1,000 downloads on most episodes within, after the first week. And that number's gone up and down over the years. We're a little bit lower now than we were maybe just a couple years ago. So it used to go, right to 1,000 within a few days of release. Now it takes a couple weeks to get up to 1,000 as far as downloads. But that's basically it. I'm going to continue to film. I'm actually recording this at a different time, but I actually last week recorded some behind the scenes of actually doing the show. I point out some of the equipment, show some of the show hosts coming, and record while we're do some vlog footage while we're actually doing the show. So that's going to come up next. Check it out. Tonight we are going to be covering the behind the scenes of the Gorilla Airsoft Radio Podcast that we do. Most people, if they're interested in watching the show, or if they're interested in listening to the show, can see us film it live or stream it live on Facebook, so they can kind of see a little bit of behind the scenes. We usually start the camera up a few minutes before the show starts, so they see us prepping, which doesn't include much, to be honest, and then maybe a few minutes after the show. But I'm just going to show a little bit more detail about the show. So I'm sitting right here where I normally sit during the show, and I'm going to pan this out so you can actually see. This is my view looking back into the shop. If you watched our last video, you can see over there is the tech bench, and then my workbench. And then during the show, we have these fancy lights up so people can actually see us. I wish I had more of them because, to be honest, they're not quite enough. And there is the restroom. This is the laptop, which the show is recorded onto. I use a program, a free open source program called Audacity. The computer's not even turned on. We're getting ready to do the show, probably start up in about an hour or so. I'm just kind of finalizing some preparation work before the rest of the guys come in. As always, I have my glasses here so I can read my notes, and I do actually have notes, some emails. We got a lot of review. We always have an agenda. This is what my agenda looks like for this evening. I literally have notes that actually cover every little aspect about even the ending of the show, which even though I've read it 188 times, I still have to rewrite it down. Call your hits, use a dead rag, always use a gun bag, and support your local airsoft shop, or there will be none. Whoa, can't lose it. So, anyways, that's our agenda. It looks pretty much the same now than it does from day one as far as the format. Equipment. Here's more equipment. This is our mixing board, something you don't see on even if you watch the live video. It's just to my right here, and I'm able to adjust the volume of the show host microphones. Through this headphone amp, I'm able to adjust the volume going into individuals' headphones. Now, as you can see, our headphone amp only has 4 inputs. So when we have the occasional guest or an extra host, sometimes they will use a splitter and plug that in, so we won't have total control, but when there's just 4 of us here, they get full control. Also, we have the ability to control the volume of telephone calls, or actually Skype calls. We basically run a standard, usually just take Skype calls through my beat up 5-year-old, actually about 7-year-old iPad, and just plug standard 1/8" plug into that, and we take the sound off of that, and then we actually pipe the sound. Here's something interesting. Let me get up for this. I was told I need to pan slower, so I'll go a little bit slower here. We actually run, let's go, cables underneath down on the floor. You can see they're heading up through this pile of junk and goodies, and we actually run cables to these little speakers right here. We have basically little computer speakers, one here and one here, and they're powered speakers. And those speakers, and this is the cheesiest method for doing this. I gotta imagine there's somebody who's an audio engineer who knows how to do it much better than me. But those speakers basically provide the volume of the calls when somebody calls into the show, when we have a guest calling into the show. Those speakers are what creates the sound, so those people who are listening or watching on Facebook Live can actually hear the sound of the caller's voice, because otherwise the caller's voice only goes into the mixing board and only goes into our headphones. So we can hear the caller, but anybody else in the room would not hear the caller at all unless we had those speakers set up. So there we go. So anyway, 12-channel mixing board. It's got 6 XLR plugs in, so they're good quality, almost studio grade. And then down here, this is actually what we started with. It's actually a Fostex digital 8-track, which I don't even think they make anymore. This is actually the second one that I've owned. We started doing the show with this because I happened to already having been involved in music before we started doing the show. I had one of these. And although we do record the show on Audacity, this is kind of our backup. We actually record on 2 different devices at the same time, so if we have any problems with one recording, then we can use the other one. The problem with this one is, as you can see, if you look at the counter right there, see it? Okay, so you can see it only goes up to 99 minutes and 59 seconds. So, because the counter is on a digital multi-tracker is not expected that you're going to record anything for more than 100 minutes. So, many times we go over that. So, this machine is basically worthless except for an emergency backup. All of the main show is recorded on the laptop with the Audacity. Okay, so this is where most of the show is recorded, and this is Audacity. This is the program that we use, has different inputs. We basically record everything on one channel, and then when I edit it, I bring it together. I'll probably show the process of editing tomorrow after we do the show, but let's see here. So we covered that. We've got the microphones. We've got my favorite microphone we have are the Behringer C1s. They're cheap. They're only like 60 bucks. We've got a couple of other microphones as well that we have picked up over the years at Guitar Center. The headphones that we use are just the cheapest Sennheiser $30 headphones that you can buy at Guitar Center or Amazon. The memory card died on the camera a minute ago, so I just went and counted down the register. So that's something we have to do at the end of the night. Count down our register, put the money up, prepare a deposit for the day. And oh look, it looks like Jesse and Joe are here, getting ready to record the show. They're hanging out in the store, conversing about airsoft things. I think they are discussing ride situations for the upcoming game. So we're still waiting on Ben, and we will start the show. I'm getting ready to do the show. I cannot forget the most important part is coming to the fridge and getting the drink of the evening. Tonight I have a hybrid, so to speak, a mixed six-pack of Goose Island IPA and Ballast Point Fathom IPA. So that will be my drink of the evening. Okay, we are in place getting ready to start the show. We have Jesse and we have Joe, and we are still waiting for the empty chair right here, which was Ben. And Ben and Joe and I were all in the store this afternoon discussing the show, and we said let's get here at 7:15 so we can start the show right at 7:30. So
and this stupid piece of shit doesn't show up.
So our East Coast listeners might have a better chance of listening live, but he's not here yet. So
well, you might as well be really.
Ben makes it in.
Hey,
he looks like he's angry about something.
Thanks for showing up on time.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
He's all dressed up. He had to go out to dinner. He had to go to dinner first. That's what it is. He's got regulars on.
Yeah.
Ben is here. Jesse is here. Joe is here. I'm going now to turn on the Facebook Live camera so we can get started here.
Oh shit, you want to fucking moonshine?
Let's see
Where'd you guys go
here.
to dinner, man?
Billy's.
You got free dinner at Billy's.
Oh, look, it looks like we are live.
Howard?
I am recording
He wanted us to go to
a
dinner, so I was
YouTube
like,
live video and
Did she just drop you off?
a vlog at the same time. Crazy. Awesome. Well, hello, and thank you for listening to episode number 188 of the Gorilla Airsoft Radio Podcast. Tonight's hosts include Jesse,
Hello.
Joe, Ben, and myself, Beast. Voicemail number, if you would. Oh wait, I'm actually holding up my fucking menu, my agenda right. Voicemail number, if you want to get a hold of the show, 661-846-2222. Facebook /Gorilla Airsoft Radio, Instagram Gorilla.airsoft, email GorillaAirsoftRadio@gmail.com. Leave a review on iTunes, and oh my God, our listeners left us a ton of reviews this week. So
You're gonna read all of them?
that I'm going to read some of them. I didn't get to the iTunes one, so our agenda.
And those are the ones we were pushing for. Huh?
Yeah, no, exactly. So I'm going to turn this camera around here so
Shut.
we can see some of the other action on the other
faces
side,
made for radio.
And so with that, I am saying this show is now
it's definitely over.
officially
Oh, it's done.
over.
There's big talk happening. Time to get the fuck out of here.
So our next show may be recorded a couple of days early.
So welcome to Cock Talk.
We shall see. Voicemail number, if you would like to get a hold of the show, 846-2222. Facebook/Gorilla Airsoft Radio. Instagram, Gorilla.Airsoft. Email, GorillaAirsoftRadio@gmail.com. Leave a review on iTunes, Facebook, everywhere you can. Promote the show. Share it. Let everybody know
Reviews.
If
you're watching
this
now
is
and you
the
haven't
greatest
reviewed-
airsoft podcast ever in history of podcast and airsoft.
Longest running airsoft podcast in the history of the world.
Yes.
Call your hits, use a dead rag, always use a gun bag, and support your local airsoft shops, or there will be none. Goodbye.
Don't be a douchebag, people.
Yeah.
Ow.
Good advice.
So there you have it. That is a little bit of behind the scenes on how the Gorilla Airsoft Radio Podcast works. I actually had originally planned on showing some of the editing and how we upload and everything, but the video's coming up on over a half hour long as it is, so got to cut some of that stuff out. I mean, I know there are some people that'd be interested in that, but it's already way too long. The goal is to keep these videos, 5-10 minutes, and this one's ridiculously long. So, anyways, that's how it goes. Continue to check out all these videos. Please subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell on YouTube so you know when new videos come out. Please make any comments in the comment section below right here, and let us know what you think. Positive reinforcement is great. Negative comments are also great as long as they're constructive. We're not going to bother with trolls. And any advice, again, I'm looking for advice from industry professionals who could help make this better, both the radio podcast and the business Gorilla Airsoft. So keep listening. I appreciate you paying attention. You must really be a glutton for punishment if you are still watching at the end of this video. So thank you very much. I don't know what this means, but...